Today is the 6th of January, and the 6th of January for centuries has been celebrated as the day of Epiphany. What does the word Epiphany mean? It means a showing forth, a revealing. What it means is the revealing or the revelation of the divine, or the recognition of the divine. And in the Bible, which is not to be taken literally, it should not be taken literally, there are stories that are related to the revelation and recognition of the divine in Jesus. Specifically, the visit of the three kings is celebrated on Epiphany. In some cultures, children get gifts from the three kings on the 6th of January. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's also associated with the story of the baptism of Jesus. In the baptism in the Jordan River, where John the Baptist baptizes Jesus, and then the sky opens up and the Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost descends in the form of a dove, and there's a voice that says, "This is my son," and that is a revelation or recognition of the divinity of Jesus, the beginning of the divine acts of Jesus and the divine ministry. It's a story about the revelation of the divine in Jesus. And then also the wedding of Cana, where Jesus turns water into wine in the story, in the myth. That's another myth story to show you something about yourself. And that's another place where we see the divinity of Jesus being recognized or revealed. So those three stories, the visit of the three kings, where they acknowledge Jesus in the manger, the baptism scene, where the divinity of Jesus is revealed or acknowledged, and the wedding at Cana, are all associated with this particular day. Why this particular day? Well, first let's look at the word Epiphany. It means a showing forth. And the same day in the Eastern Church, the Greek Church and the Eastern Orthodox churches, is typically called Theophany, which means the showing forth of God. Epi means towards. There's a lot of different words in English that still have epi at the beginning, like a epithet or an epistle, which is a letter written to someone, an epistle. And phanos means to show forth. We actually have some words in English that contain that root, that Greek word, that root to show, like a diaphanous dress or a diaphanous gown is a gown that has a fabric that is kind of see-through, or at least partly see-through, so it's diaphanous. So Epiphany means to show forth the divinity. It doesn't actually contain the word for divinity, it just means showing forth, a revelation. A theophany means to show the God, the divinity, theos. It's related to the same word dios, which is related to the word Zeus, the god of ancient Greece. Dios, Zeus, theos. Theophany means a showing forth of the Godhead or the divinity. So that is celebrated on the 6th of January. Why? Why the 6th of January? Because of something called the 12th night. You've heard of the Shakespeare play, The 12th Night. There's all these revelations and kind of almost like April Fool's tomfoolery on the 12th night, and that's what the play is all about. The 12th night after Christmas falls on the 5th of January. If you count up the nights, so if Christmas Day is the 25th, then that's the first night. 25th is the first, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st. There's 7 nights before we get to the night before New Year's. And then the night of the 1st of January, 2nd of January, 3rd of January, 4th of January, 5th of January, that's the 12th night. You've heard of the 12 Days of Christmas song? The 12th night happens on the 5th of January, so after the 12 days of Christmas, that's when the hidden divinity shows forth. On which day? The 13th. The 13th. The day of the revelation of the hidden, buried divinity. This is actually telling us something about self, yourself, myself, our higher self, or you could say your deeper self that is suppressed and hidden and buried. It's like the 13th zodiac sign that is suppressed and hidden and left out. Ophiuchus plays the role of these self figures throughout myth, not just in the Bible stories and myths, but in myths around the world. They're all related, and they use Ophiuchus, that 13th hidden, the symbol of the divine and hidden 13th sign. That Ophiuchus constellation plays the role of higher self figures such as Jesus, such as the Buddha, such as the goddess Athena, such as the goddess Inanna in ancient Sumer. So after the 12th night comes the revelation on the 13th day of the divinity in Jesus. Jesus is a metaphorical dramatization of higher self. It shows forth on the 13th day. So the 13th day after Christmas, and remember, Christmas comes, we talked about it in some of the previous videos that I just posted a few weeks ago, 3 days after solstice. So this is clearly celestial metaphor. The date of Christmas is keyed to solstice, 3 nights after the solstice, the winter solstice for the northern hemisphere. You get the night of the 24th and then the birth of the baby Jesus on the 25th. 12 nights later, you get 12th night and then the revelation of the hidden divinity on the 13th. So it all ties in to this ancient system. It's a beautiful kind of dramatization. It's metaphorical. These stories can be shown to be celestial and metaphorical. In fact, the visit of the 3 kings is one of the clearest examples in the Bible that these are not terrestrial historical events, because in the text itself it says, "Now came their kings from the east," and throughout the passage it says they followed a star in the east. And when they get to Bethlehem, they say, "We followed the star that we have seen in the east." Well, it just doesn't work if they are terrestrially in the east, to the east of Jerusalem and east of Bethlehem, and then they follow a star that they've seen in the east. That would lead them towards Asia and across China, not towards the Mediterranean Sea. So it does work in the sky if the 3 kings are the 3 stars of Orion's belt, and they came from the east, just like all stars do. They rise in the east and they set in the west, and as they get towards the west, they can look back to the east. As they get to the west, they can look back towards the east and see another star rising that is associated with Virgo, the Virgin, and that star is associated with the child on the lap of the Virgin and feeding at the breast of the Virgin, as we see in artwork of the Madonna artwork, but also the artwork of ancient Egypt, where Isis is suckling Horus sitting on her lap, or Nephthys is suckling Horus sitting on her lap. So it does work celestially. The 3 kings look back to the east again. After they come from the east, they can look back to the east and see his star, the star Vindemiatrix. I've talked about this in several other videos. It works in the heavens. It doesn't work terrestrially. It's all celestial. The 3 kings, they come and they bring gifts to the baby. It's a recognition of divinity. And in traditions where we have this idea of the 3 kings that come give gifts to children, what is that saying? That's a recognition of the divinity in you. That's what the whole story is actually about. And that's what they're dramatizing in these rituals and traditions, is this story's about you. The three kings come and give you a gift. After 12th night, you can wake up and, oh, the three kings, the Magi, must have visited and left some gifts. It's a reenactment of a mythical story, mythical in that it is not mythical to trick you, mythical to show you something, to teach us something. It's about the revelation of self, which is buried and hidden, and has all those divine qualities that we seek and that we need, that figures such as Jesus or the Buddha exhibit in these stories of clarity and compassion and connectedness and curiosity and courage, all these characteristics of self that Dr. Richard Schwartz talks about in his internal family systems paradigm, which he discovered through the course of dealing with thousands of patients. He discovered the presence of this amazing innate self, higher self, that has these characteristics innately, but is often buried and hidden due to all kinds of psychological trauma and issues and things that we encounter in this world. We become disconnected from and alienated from self. And so these ancient myths are pointing us towards that, and you can see it in these stories in the Bible. The submersion of the deity in the water at the baptism scene, the submersion of Jesus in the water, or going down into the river to be baptized, and that's where the divinity is revealed. The divine spark is plunged down into this mortal body that's made of earth and water. We know it's like 7/8 water or whatever percentage of water. The divinity is down, submerged, hidden in the water. It's just like the crossing of the Red Sea. That's another story that can be shown. I have shown it to be celestial. Moses is a constellation. In fact, Moses is Ophiuchus, and he's standing beside the Milky Way, and he's holding his staff out over the passage through the Milky Way, where it opens and the dark rift crosses the Milky Way. I spend a lot of time examining this very important story in the Bible in my courses, online courses on the Bible. If you want to see how Bible stories are about self and how they are metaphorical dramatizations of what we need to know in this life, if you really want to understand the Bible this year, go check out my courses at theundyingstars.com, and you can see my Celestial Bible Tour. There's Celestial Bible Tour Part 1 and Celestial Bible Tour Part 2, and you can start with Part 2 if you want. That's where the Moses story is. The Joseph story is in Part 2, David, Solomon, and in Part 1 I go through the flood, going through the flood. In Part 1 I talk about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Those are stories, I show it very clear, that are based on the stars. They are celestial metaphor pointing us towards recovery of self, recognition of the divine self that is in you, that is in me. That is what the Epiphany traditions are all about. It's not about literal, historical, ancient history. It's about something that we need today, right now. And so on this day of Theophany and Epiphany, I wish for you a happy new year, and for all of us, what we really need, that recovery of self and living more and more with that recognition and self-led condition where we are actually orchestrating all the members of our internal team, our internal family, is following the lead and the coaching and guidance and leadership of that divine self that's exhibiting those characteristics that are shown by the figure of Jesus or these other figures in myth around the world. Happy New Year.